this evening to discuss on Angular Storybook. And as Wen said, this is going to be this is going to be kind of a hands-on session. So it's not just like I will just go through the slides and explain you some of the theoretical stuffs. So rather, we are just going to create a storybook using Angular. And let me tell about myself before I pitch into the session. So I have like close to 10 years of experience in software industry. And I host Angular meetups in USA as well as in India as well. And we also conduct meetup events online. You can check our meetup group Angular Hive in meetup.com. So we host like 1 or 2 events every month, and that predominantly talks about Angular, right? So with no further delay, let me share my screen. Let me start with the deck quickly. Okay, hope you are able to see my screen now. So can yes. Someone check? Yeah, thank you. Okay, okay, what is storybook? So we are not going to write stories or something like bedtime stories or novel. Rather, we are going to use a storybook.js to create our design systems, right? So when I say design systems, you may already know about it, but those who are new to design systems, okay, it is kind of a Bible, I would say. So where you will find all the components that are used in your company, or it could be like a third-party design systems like Microsoft provided, Google provided, or it could be even Morningstar provided. So you can find the components in their design systems. Basically, it's kind of a dictionary for developers, designers, as well as for like end users. Like it could be a testers, or it could be even your market team. So they can just take a look at your components in the design systems. Okay, so let me share a simple design system that we have already, which is Morningstar design system. So if you take a look at their design systems, you can see they have UI components. Like what are the UI components they use in their morningstar.com? They just put it here, right? So you can refer it and you can just follow the design principles given in these components, or you can even use it just like that if license allows that, or you can just refer this and create a components out of this. Okay. Say for example, let me open a button component from this design system. So you can see like what are the types of buttons we have here, like primary button, secondary button, icon only, with icon. So we have all types of buttons here, and we also have the respective code for these components, right? So how a primary button will be in a disabled state, and how a secondary button will be in a disabled state or in enabled state. You can find that here, right? So similarly, you can see, you can find all the other types of buttons here, how a loading button will look like, right? So this is just for a button. Say for example, if you want to take a look at another component, for example, popover. So how a popover will look like. So when you mouse over on a control, a UI control, you will see a popover or a help text, we usually call it, right? So how that will look like. So you can find that action here, open popover. So when you click on this button, it's going to open the popover. And similarly, when you size it based on 200 pixel or 300 pixel or 500 pixel, you can create the respective popovers. So how those code will look like. So you will find the design of your component as well as the respective code within the design system, right? So design system not only will have UI components, it will also have information about your this pattern, like what kind of color patterns you follow in your website. Say, for example, when you take a look at Google related products, you will find the same color used across their products, right? So similarly for Facebook, similarly for Microsoft, you will find the same color is followed across the products or across the applications of a specific company, right? So not only that, they design system can also have like how the text size should be and how the title text size should be and what font style it should use. All those information you can find within design system, right? But we are not going to create a design system like this, so which will have all the information. Rather, we are going to create a minified version of design system, and that is going to look something like this. Okay, so this is a design system which I created using Storybook, and it's actually hosted on my GitHub repository. And you will find the components in sidebar, like button component, header component, and image component, right? So for example, button component, how a button component will look like. Say, for example, how the primary button will look like, how a secondary button will look like, how a large button will look like, right? How a small button will get rendered. So all those kind of testing you can do within your design system as well. So this design system is kind of a product which is an internal product basically, which will be used by your designers like UI designers, and this will also be referred by your UX team, whoever is creating prototype, and this can also be referred by your developers, could be a front-end developers or back-end developers or even testers or even market people as well, like whoever involves in marketing. So they can also they can also refer this design system just in case if they want to take a look at how they can improve a button or how they can improve a pop-up or dialog box. So you can get the suggestion from them. So basically, this is going to be used by different stakeholders within your company, right? And Storybook is basically going to help us develop this design system with simple configurations and like zero coding. So you don't have to develop everything from scratch. So Storybook is going to take care of that, right? So with I think this theoretical part of Storybook is enough, I guess. Let's move on to creating Storybook. Okay, just a moment. Okay. Yep. You can find me on Twitter at Ask Uday, and you can also refer my previous talks at this address askuday.com. So this is the agenda for today. So we are going to start with Storybook, set up Storybook in our local, and run Storybook and create stories within Storybook and publish the Storybook on GitHub, right? So this is the agenda I have. So I will try to complete this within next 40 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So let me skip this. I think I already introduced about me. Yep. So Storybook, as I mentioned before, it's an open source tool for developing UI components in isolation for React, Vue, Angular, as well as other frameworks, right? So your design team can create your UI components separately before creating the page itself. Say, for example, they can create a simple button first. On top of that, they can add different types of buttons. And once all types of buttons are created, you can move on to create a page structure, and you can decide where this button needs to be used, right? So you can progress like that, like first create a component and then move on to creating a page, right? So a Storybook is going to help you in creating these components in isolation, which means you don't have to depend on any other team. Like you don't have to depend on testing team or development team here. So you are going to create components, and these components are going to be created in isolation. So create button component first. So creating button component doesn't need, it doesn't need a form at all. So you can create form component later. So just think about which components you are going to create first, and based on that proceed with your page design. Okay. So this will help you to create a minimal version of design systems as well. So once you create all these components, you can put it in Storybook and you can present it to your stakeholders. You can just share this design system URL with your testers or your development team or even your marketing team to just showcase how your components are going to look like. Okay, get their feedback and do the changes within your components and publish the storybook again. Take it back to your stakeholders, get the feedback again, right? So this is how the life cycle of your component creation could be. And once you create the components, what you can do, you can create a mock-up screens. So you don't have to really depend on a backend like a REST API or something. So you can use the mock data in that case, and you can just show how your page will look like, right? Say, for example, you are going to create a dashboard page using Angular. You don't have to really depend on the REST API or the backend API to retrieve the dashboard data, right? Because the backend team is going to take another 1 month or 2 months to create their REST API. So you don't have to wait till 1 month to test your changes, to test your UI. So in that case, what you can do, you can create a component using HTML, CSS, and Angular on top of that. JavaScript, of course, and put those components within your storybook with a mockup data. Okay, and that is going to show you like how a component going to look like, right? So once you are satisfied with your component, ship it, get the feedback again, fix your change, fix your code, push it again, get the feedback, so you can refine your components in such a way. Okay, so Storybook is already used by all giants like GitHub, Dropbox, Airbnb, Lyft, Mozilla, and you can find even other big giants that are using Storybook in storybook.js.org. So let's move on to the next part, setting up Storybook. So let me create a simple Angular application first. On top of that, I'm going to add Storybook support. Okay, so far any questions? If you have any questions, just post it on Teams comments. I think we have comments within Teams, so you can post it there. Yeah, so let me go ahead and create a simple Angular project. So ng new, let me name it as Storybook demo. Okay, so this is going to be my simple project, and this project is going to create, this is going to create a simple Angular skeleton project for me. On top of that, I'm going to add Storybook support. Okay, so you can find the information on how to set up Storybook in their setup documentation. So I just added that in my deck already, like you can refer it. So Storybook supports even other frameworks like React, Vue.js. Even it supports a standalone HTML, CSS, JavaScript as well. But in this case, I'm going to use Angular support for my Storybook. And this is going to basically add the necessary items or necessary configurations that are needed for my Angular project. Okay, so let's go and see whether the project is created. Yeah, the project is still being created. It's installing the packages. Okay, so in the meantime, what we can do, we can check on the storybook.js.org and see how that looks like. Okay, So if you go to learnstorybook.com, you will find information on how to use Storybook and what are the configurations you need to follow. And you will find all support here. So if you want to create a design systems for your developers or for your testers, how to create that, okay? And what is the architecture of Storybook and how to build your Storybook and how to test it, review it. You will find all information for your design system here. Okay. And let me go back and see whether the project got created. Yes, the project got created. Let me go into the project, which is Storybook demo. And now I'm going to add support for Storybook. So you can find the command here, and this is going to install Storybook CLI to my Angular project. If you take a look at this command npx, you know what is this? So this is going to install the package. And what kind of package I'm going to install here is Storybook CLI package. And that is going to initialize my Storybook as well. Okay. And this is going to do the initialization for my Angular project. So if you want to do it for React, mention your type as React, or if it's going to be Vue.js, just mention it as Vue, right? And this is going to add Storybook support for my project. And this will basically download the packages, and it will also initialize my Angular project with Storybook configuration. Okay, so this is going to take like couple minutes. So without waiting for that, let's move on to the next part. Okay, so once the Storybook configurations are added to my Angular project, this is how the folder structure will look like. Okay, so it will automatically add a folder called stories, and you will find a list of predefined stories added to that. Okay, so Storybook is adding like predefined stories just for your sake of understanding, like how story will look like. And how can you configure the stories? You can take a look at these stories to get a good understanding on that. Okay, and not only that, it will also add another folder called .storybook, and this will basically have all the configurations that goes within Storybook. Okay, so when you use this Storybook CLI command, this will basically add a couple of stories for you for your understanding, as well as it will also add configurations for your Storybook. Okay, so this is going to take like a couple seconds. This is basically downloading all the packages, and also it is upgrading our dependencies. If we don't have if we don't have like latest packages, it will automatically update that. So once it added all the packages, it will add this folder called stories as well as .storybook. Yep. So far you have any questions before we move on to the next part? Okay. That's good.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
So hi everyone, I hope you're well. I wanted to ask, does Storybook support the design of typography?
Yeah, that's a good question. Storybook doesn't support a design of typography just like that, like out of box, but you can create your stories based on different typographies. Yes, you can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So it doesn't come with like out of box support for typographies, but you can still create your plugins like Storybook plugins kind of a custom plugins, and you can add support for typographies. Okay. All set. Let's take a look at our Git bash. Yep, it installed all these packages. It added the support for Storybook, and it also added the configurations. All right. Okay, let me open this project on VS Code. I just ran this command code space dot. This will open my project in VS Code. All set. My project is here. And as I mentioned, you will find a folder called .storybook, which will have like default configuration for Storybook. Okay. So the main configuration that you need to take a look at is main.js. So this configuration will have information on where your stories reside within your project. So all my stories needs to be either in this extension with this extension like .mdx or JS, JSX, TS or TSX. Okay. So all these stories need to be present anywhere under SRC folder. If you have your stories present somewhere outside of your SRC folder, yeah, you can very well have that, but you need to update this path to refer your stories location. Okay. On top of that, you need to add support for your add-ons. So the two add-ons that got added by default here is add-on links and add-on essentials. I will go through this in detail later, but for now, just understand this configuration is created by Storybook, and this is a default configuration, right? And preview.js. So preview.js will basically create your preview of your components, right? And if your components need any specific documentation, that documentation goes within, those configurations goes within this preview.js. Okay. And tsconfig.json, this is basically for TypeScript support, like what rules we need to follow for our stories. All those will go within this, right? Basically for TypeScript configuration. And typings.d.ts. So this is basically for stories that you are using with .md format. Okay, but here we are not going to use .md. We are just going to go with Angular formatting. Okay, so this is the default configuration, and let me dive into the stories that got created by default. So you will see these many stories got created here: button, header, and page. Right? We got 3 stories, and button.stories.ts is actually the story, and button.component.ts is nothing but your Angular component. Okay, and button.css, as the name says, this is the CSS for my button component, right? And similarly for header component, the header component code, Angular code goes within header.component.ts, and header.stories.ts will have information about what kind of story you have for header, right? And header.css will have information about your header style sheet. Okay, so let me dig into the button.stories.ts. So what it is basically, right? So when you are going to create stories, as the name says, we will be creating stories for each component, right? So stories are nothing but, like if you have a component, say for example a button component, that button component can have a story. Okay, and that story could be, that story could have like different templating, right? It could have like different templating, like what kind of button you want to render, like primary button or secondary button, large or small. You can define that within your button story. Okay, so that's what we have here. So we have this button stories.ts, and all the configurations for button goes within this. So these are the meta informations you need to export before you create a button template out of the button component we have here. So the default meta information that you need to create is the title for your button story. Say for example, when I click on this button story here, you will see the title got changed to example/button, right? So this information you need to pass here in the title. And which component you want to create a story out of that, right? So that you need to mention, and button is my button component. So you can see we are importing this button from button.component, which is basically our button component. Okay, and this button component is going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 input components, right? Sorry, not components, 4 input data, and also it is going to emit, or it's going to throw back emitter saying that like when you click on this button, it's going to throw like what that button is, what that button size is, right? So this is what we have. Oh, sorry. We just have the emitter here, and it is not throwing anything. Yeah, we have some classes here set, which will basically change the class of your button from primary to secondary, or secondary to large or small, like whichever whichever value you are passing to the classes. Okay. So let me jump on to this button stories again. And this button story is going to have argument types as background color as a color, which we will be passing from our control. Say for example, if you want to change the color of this button, you can change it from here. Okay, so you can change, or you can choose your button color right from here. So it will automatically update the button color, right? So we are taking the advantage of Storybook here by passing the color to our button background color property. Okay, and this color will automatically be available within the Storybook packages. Okay, all set. So let's dive on to creating a button first. So we are going to create a button template here using our template object. So this will create a button template for us, and this is going to take arguments as button, and this button is nothing but our button component. Okay, and the component here is button, and the properties it's going to take is arguments. So we already set this arguments here. Okay, so these arguments will be passed automatically here, and so we are going to create many, different kind of templates out of this button. So the first one is we are going to create a primary button out of that. So for primary button, like what are the arguments we need to pass? So just take a look at our button component. We have like different input arguments to this button class here, right? So if it needs to be primary, it can be either true. If it doesn't need to be primary, you can pass it as false. Okay. So what we are doing here, if it needs to be a primary button, we are passing this primary value as true, and label for this button as button. Okay. So label is nothing but the button text, I would say. Okay. And this is actually referred within our button here, right? Okay, coming back, if it needs to be a secondary button, we are just setting the label, and by default, if you take a look, the primary value is false, so it's going to render like a secondary button. If it needs to be a large button, you need to pass the size as large, and you see the size is one of the input argument here, and that could be small, medium, large, or it could be even medium as well. Okay, so coming back, so we have this, even if you pass it as large, it's going to behave like a medium. So that's what this denotes. Okay. And coming back to another story we have here, which is small. So if you want to render a small button, you need to create size as small and label as button. Okay. So let me run the storybook in my local. So to do that, I can run this command npm run storybook. This will run the storybook in my local. Basically, it will compile the storybook code, and it will add the configurations related to that. Okay, so it's not going to take much time. So for first time, it will take like couple seconds. From next time, it will be quick. Okay, yeah, so we have our storybook running in our local. So you can see it's running on port number 6006. And if you take a look at button, we have primary, secondary, large, and small. Okay, so let me change something to my primary button. I want to change this label to primary button. Let me save it. So once you save it, if you take a look at here, it automatically compiles the code, and it runs on the server. You can see the button label got changed. So what you can do, you can present this URL to your stakeholders like testers or marketing team or even developers if you are a designer, right? And you can tell them, okay, this is how the primary button will look like. And if it needs to be a secondary button, just change the value to false. It will look like a secondary button. If you want it to be a large button or medium button or small button, it's going to look like this. Okay, so on click, it's going to just emit it's just going to emit event, and we are not doing any action here. So this is how you can present your design system or a specific component, not just a design system. Let's say, for example, you are just creating one component at a time. You can show this to your stakeholders and get approval to move on to next component creation, right? So we also have header component here. How like logged in header will look like, or how logout header will look like, right? And similarly, how logged in page will look like, and how logged out page will look like. And not only that, you can also check your you can also check the documentation for this, like what are the properties this particular component accept, and how like different component will look like, and what is the respective code. You can just take a look at all these in under docs here. Okay. In addition to that, the most I liked feature, the feature which I like much here is you can apply grid and say this is how this top portion of the grid will occupied by this component. You can just show your developers or your design team like how this needs to look like, right? And also you can go with a dark theme or light theme, like how this will look like, how your components will render in different themes, and how this button will look like in small mobile or large mobile or in tablet. Even you can change the orientation of your tablet from a portrait to you can change it from portrait to, yeah, we can do that. I'm not sure. Yeah, actually you can change the portrait as well from landscape to portrait or from portrait to landscape. Just the orientation. Okay. Yeah, so that's all we have for the predefined components. Okay. So if you want to quickly take a look at this, I'll just share this URL on comments. Okay, I'm trying my best to look for comments here.
If it's not there, you could just definitely send it to me, and then I'll just share it with everyone. That's not a problem.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll send it later to Wayne. You can take a look. All set. We now have some idea about what is Storybook and what Storybook tries to achieve. Right? So let's move on to create our stories. So that's the target, right? So we have like predefined stories like button, header, page, but we need to create our stories. So to create stories, we need to create component first, right? So the component which I'm planning to create here is a simple image component. So let me go to my console or command palette. Sorry, not command palette. So I just want to run my terminal right from here. So I just go to here and create a simple image component. Okay, so that's what I mentioned in the deck as well. So I'm going to create a simple image component, and this image component will be created right under my app. You can see the image component is having a simple text. I need to change this, and also the CSS and also the TS, right? So just go back to the deck. I already added like how this image component is going to look like. So let me put this piece of code here. So this is my image component.ts, and you can update your image URL if you want to load external image. But in my case, I'm going to use my assets image. So for that, I need to add my image to this assets folder. So let me go to desktop, pick this asset, and I just drop it inside assets. Okay, so this is the image I'm going to use. So I'll just add this assets as assets slash Pondicherry _ French _ hotel.jpg. Okay, all set.
Just a quick question. So
Yep.
does that mean that when you have this Angular app already built and then you install the Storybook package, does that mean like this app is going to be specifically for Storybook, and that's why when you generated the component image, it has like stuff that is specifically for Storybook?
No.
Or
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually I copied this code and pasted there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Sure.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so you will continue to create components like Angular components and no change in that. So Storybook is not going to intervene there. So you will create your components there, and on top of that, you need to add your support for Storybook, basically, right? So
Okay.
I am planning to have like 4 input decorator for my image component. And if you take a look, this one is image SRC. I just wanted it to be like configurable. I don't want it to be a static image. Even I can pass a different URL here that will render the image that I want to render on the page, right? You can pass any URL here. That's up to you. And if you want to have alternative text for your image component, yes, if you want to have, you can have it, but this is optional. That's why you see question mark colon here. And if you want to have a caption text for your image, that's again optional. You can pass it, or you can even ignore that. And if you want to have image opacity like 1 or 0.5 or 0.8, you can still do that. And again, this is optional, right? So these are the parameters I want to have for my image component. And on top of that, I need to create image figure element itself, right? So if you go to my image.component.html, we have this paragraph tag. I'm just going to replace that with the figure tag, which I copied from my deck. Okay, and this is my figure tag, which is the HTML5 tag, which is taking image and figure caption. And you can see image SRC, which is my input decorator, and alternative text is being used here, and fig caption text is being used here, right? All set. And we need to add some CSS to this, right? So I'm adding this CSS for fig caption. So we can see this image component rendering fine now. So to test that, I'm going to add this image component under my app.component.html. So I'm going to add app image slash, with closing tag of app image within my app.component.html, because this app.component.html is getting bootstrapped when you run this application, right? So let me run this application like a normal Angular app. So we usually run Angular app using this command, ngserve-o. So this is going to render this application on my Angular local server. Let's see how this image is going to look like. Okay. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, let me know. Okay. So it should look like this. Okay. You can see a nice image getting rendered. And following that, we have this figure caption text. Okay. So, this photo was clicked in Pondicherry, which is in South India, basically. And this is a hotel, it seems. Okay. So I added this image, and following that, I have this fig caption. This is my image component, and I want to present this image component to my different stakeholders, and just to let them know, like what can I do with this image component, whether I can change the opacity of this image, or whether I can give a different text, or if I want to give like 1,000 words text, how that's going to render. All that I can test with the help of Storybook. Okay, so to add stories to this, all we need to do is we need to create a stories class first. Okay, so go ahead and create stories. So let me stop the server, and we need to create story. And you know that our stories are right under SRC stories folder, right? So just jump on to SRC folder first and move on to the stories folder. Okay, I'm right under the stories folder. So I'm going to create a simple stories class here. So to do that, I'm going to use a touch command to create the story. So touch, and you can name it however you want. So I'm going to name it like image.stories.ts. Okay, so all the configurations goes with TS. So basically you can use TS again. Okay, it needs to be in uppercase. So I just create this image.stories.ts, and it's not having anything inside. And I need to create image component template first, and I need to pass different arguments, right? So let's dive into the code for the story. I just copied the stories code from here, and I just pasted it within my story. Okay, and now if you take a look, so we are basically importing types types -6-0 for story as well as meta. That's what we are going to use here. And also we are importing our image component. So image component is present here, right? All set. So go back to our image.stories.ts. First, you need to define the meta information for your story, image story. And I want this title of the story needs to be example/image component. And properties, and the component needs to be image component. Okay, this is the meta information. And here I'm creating the template out of this image component. And this template will be used in multiple places to create my image component with different arguments, right? So this template is going to take all the properties of this image component, as well as it's going to take image component as the component itself. Okay, so first I'm going to use this template, and I'm going to create a simple image component with fig caption text as empty. Okay, that's what I mentioned here, no image caption. And the second one is I create this image component with caption. So I just named it as with image caption. And this one is with zero opacity. Sorry, with full opacity, not zero, right? With full opacity. So just pass it as full opacity here. And that's what I mentioned. Image opacity argument is 1 here. With off opacity, I pass this image opacity as 0.5. All set. I just saved this and go back to my storybook, which is running in my local. Yeah, here it is. Let me refresh this page once again. And in left sidebar, you can see image component got added, and that comes with like different options we added here within these stories. The first one is no image caption, which you can see here, and following that with image caption, with full opacity, and with off opacity, right? We can explore that one by one now. So no image caption. So if you go down below, you won't see the caption at all, right? With image caption, yeah. So you see the caption here, and if you want to change this caption to something else, okay, and see that caption getting rendered on the component right away. So I'm going to say like I'm adding a different caption for my image here. Okay, if you want to test it with like 1,000 words or 10,000 words, if you want to see how that is going to look like, you can do this. Okay, and you can show to your stakeholders and get their feedback. Okay, this is how the fig caption will look like, or the caption for this figure will look like. Okay, and get their feedback and change the CSS or whatever. If you want to change the padding of this, or if you want to add a different color, get the feedback, do the change within your component, and publish the storybook again. Take this or share this URL with your stakeholder and get the feedback again. Okay, and with full opacity, you can see the images with full opacity, and with off opacity, you can see the images with 0.5 opacity, right? So this is how you can check your or present your components on design systems. And this is how it will look like in small mobile, and this is how it will look like in large mobile, and this is how it will look like in tablet. Okay, yeah, so I found it finally. So if you see here, This is in landscape orientation, and this is in portrait orientation. Okay, just click on this. It will rotate the viewport. Okay. So we created our image component, and also we added stories for our image component. Okay, all set. Let's move on to the next part, which is adding the add-ons. Okay, so I added these add-ons already for Storybook. So in the configuration that goes within main.js. So you don't have, if you want to add a different add-ons, take a look at Storybook add-ons, and you will find different add-ons there. Just use whichever you want in your application. Okay, so it comes with different add-ons like control, action, viewport, story shot. If you want to display your source code for your respective component, you can use source add-on. And similarly, you can add the accessibility add-on, right? Even you can create your custom add-on as well in Storybook. Okay, so just move on to the next part. Running the Storybook. Yeah, I showed you already how to run the Storybook. You can also build the Storybook as a static site, and that's what I'm going to do now. So to create the static site out of the Storybook, Storybook itself added a script for that. So you need to run build Storybook. So this will run this command, and it will create a static Storybook site for you. Okay. So let me run npm run build Storybook. This is going to build Storybook static website for you. You can take that website, static website, and you can host it in like AWS S3, or you can put it in GitHub, or you can even have it like a locally running website, or you can even host it within your web servers. Okay, and this will take a little bit time to build the Storybook site, and the Storybook site will be created under a folder called Storybook static. Okay, so you can copy this entire files, whichever you can find under Storybook-static, and you can put it within the web servers wherever you want to run it. Okay, so it's still creating that. Okay, yep, all set. We have this content here. You can see index.html, and all the assets goes within Storybook static, and the CSS and other static information like media goes within here. Okay, so if you want to run this Storybook static site as a standalone web application within your local, you can take help of like Apache server. If you don't want to use Apache server because it involves some configurations, you can go with Light server. And to do that, let me move on to the Storybook static folder first. And right here, I'm going to run Light server command. Okay, so this will spin a Light server, and this will render Storybook on port 3000, and basically it will render index.html. From there, the actual rendering takes place. Okay, so this is actually running on port 3000 on Light server, and this is a static site of my Storybook or my design system. I can just share this content with my web admin to deploy it like a separate web application within my company for internal reference. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. The other way is if you want to deploy it directly to your GitHub. I'm not going to take more than 5 minutes here. Let me complete it quickly, and we'll take your questions from there. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add the support for a Storybook deployer, basically. Okay. And this will install the package for my Storybook deployer. And if you want to do it with AWS S3, you can add the script within your package.json. Or if you want to use GitHub, you can go with this command. So I'm going to use GitHub. So let me add this command within my package.json. Okay. All set. I added this command, and if I want to run it, I need to first deploy this code within my GitHub. Okay, so let me quickly create a repository within GitHub. So, storybook demo. Sorry, and let me keep it as public and create repository. And basically, I want to add this as my remote. And let me switch on to main branch. And let me add entire content to that. Let me commit it quickly. Okay. And let me push it. Okay, all set. I pushed my code here. Now it's time to run our deployer, right? So I already added deployer here within my package.json. Okay, so I'm going to run this from here. So npm run deploy storybook, and this is going to run storybook to gh pages, which is like GitHub pages. So it will deploy my code. First, it will build my storybook like I did previously to create the static site, and then it will upload the storybook static site to my GitHub pages. Okay, it's going to take a little bit time anyway. Okay, it deployed it to storybook, and this is the URL. Okay, it may take a minute or two because it will basically take like 2 or 3 minutes in GitHub pages to propagate our DNS changes, all those. Okay, so you can see this storybook running here after a couple of minutes. Okay, in the meantime, I already deployed this in my GitHub pages, which you can see here as a static design system. Okay, all set. So we understood how storybook works, and we created a stories, and also we deployed our stories to our GitHub pages. Okay, so it's still taking time. Just check after 5 minutes. I'll share this URL with Wayne. He will share it with you. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, so please, if you have any question, you could unmute and then just ask your question.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
When you create a design in the storybook, are they savable? Can you actually save them for any future reference?
The design in the sense like which one you are talking about, the components, what I created?
Yeah, like this component you have created. Can you actually save it, or after you just leave it, the changes you have made, they will just disappear? And you'll have to start again.
I mean, this is a project basically. This is a storybook project, right? You can check in these changes within your GitHub repository so that it will not miss. Or if I didn't understand your question correctly, yeah.
Yeah, Dennis. I think what Udhay is trying to say, it's like just a typical project that you have. So if you're building just a very basic Angular application, right, and you've pushed your changes, it's still going to act as a project, a normal project which has your changes already, and
Yep.
unless you want to change it more, of course you're going to push your changes. But other than that, like it's still going to be constant unless you push any changes. Nothing is going to disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, Dennis, is that answer satisfactory for you?
Yeah, that part is okay. I mean,
Okay.
let's say you're creating some buttons, right? And to whomever you're showing the buttons, they are satisfactory. They are satisfied by whatever you've presented. Can you actually save those changes that you have made? Maybe you have given it a specific design, a specific color. Can you actually save it such that you can refer to it maybe in a near future? That's
Sure.
what I mean.
Yeah, I got your question totally now. Yeah, so we didn't cover that part here, considering the time, but I have put that link here, which is chromatic. Okay. So chromatic will take care of this flow, whatever flow we talked about. Like say, for example, Dynamo. For example, Dynamo is creating a button component, and he is showing it to his fellow team members to get the feedback, right? And they are giving some productive feedback, and Dynamo is implementing that, and he is again taking it to them for getting feedback again, right? So this is I mean, he can directly interact with them on Slack or Teams. But how about a big organization? Say you have like your teams in different locations, like different countries, and your manager is sitting somewhere in like somewhere in India or in USA, and how you will get their approval, right? So like verbal approval is not going to work, right? So you can create a flow using chromatic, and in chromatic you will publish your storybook. You can do a visual testing. You can get the review with your team, like your manager can go and approve it. And once it is approved, the code will get merged to the GitHub, right? As Dynamo asked how the previous version of button will look like. Yes, you can take a look at that in chromatic.com, right? The account that once you create with chromatic.com, you will find your different versions of components there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's free for developers. You just take a look, and Chromatic is basically made for Storybook, and it's made by Storybook maintainers, of course. Okay, so just watch their video when possible. You will understand how that works. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, so for my question is, could you say that Storybook is sort of like an alternative to using like prototyping tools such as like Marvel App or Proto.io?
No, this is not a prototyping tool. Prototyping is totally different. Prototype will basically have mock pages, right? But Storybook is going to have components. Basically, it's going to act like a design system. It's a one-stop place where all your stakeholders can come and take a look. Okay, how a button will look like in our company website. How a button will look like in our internal leave application. How a button will look like in our like for French version of our website, say for example, right? So those kind of stuffs you can take a look at our design system, basically in Storybook. And not only that, you will create components in isolation and get feedback from your different team members. And that is included within the Storybook.
Okay, makes sense now.
Yeah.
All right.
It's open source again, so you don't have to pay anything. And if you feel like you want to contribute something, you can do it. And you can even enhance some features, and you can even proprietarily have that within yourself. And you can take the help of Chromatic as well. Yeah.
All right.
Chromatic
Thank you.
works like charm. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other question? Anyone has a question? Please just unmute and ask the question.
This is the slide URL. This is a slide URL if you want to take a look right away.
Okay, so just I think as we finalize, so Uday, what, for example, as a developer, have you worked with Storybook before for projects, and how was it as an experience?
Sure. Storybook is by default used in AEM, Adobe Experience Manager. So if you are not familiar with that, it's a content management system, which is an Adobe product basically, and we can create websites using AEM basically, right? And AEM comes with Storybook as one of its default configuration for creating components in isolation, and also for presenting components on a design system, right? So many companies are adopting it. They are using it internally, and also they are suggesting to use in their products as well. And from my experience, yeah, I liked it very much. And it's very easy to showcase our components to different stakeholders. I'm not a designer. I'm a full stack developer. So whenever I need to involve something around the front end part, I first take a look at my design system, Storybook in this case, and just to try to understand how this button will look like, or how, like what is the priority of a button in our applications, like when a primary button needs to be used. So all those information I will find within the Storybook. And not only me, like a tester can take a look, a marketing team can take a look, like however your organization is structured, and whoever needs to be the stakeholders, you can give them the access to Storybook, and you can get it going from there. Yeah.
All right, awesome. And does that mean that they can only give you like verbal feedback, or probably, let's say, they can open the Storybook and then probably like put down some notes somewhere? So the way when you have someone has access to, for example, slides, and they can provide notes for you, like, oh, I like this color and all that. Like, does Storybook have that feature?
Storybook itself doesn't have that, but with the help of Chromatic, you can do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they just, they just have that feature outside of Storybook, because Storybook is meant only for design system. So they don't want all the comments and other stuffs on the Storybook right away.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else was a question?
All
Okay.
right.
All right, so if there's no one who has a question, I'd like to say a big thank you to those who took the time to join us for this session. A big thank you to Uday for taking us through this session. For most of us here, I'm very sure we haven't seen Storybook before. We just started like researching on it before the session, or even days before, because it's something new, something fresh. And we are glad that you gave us a sneak peek to some of the features and how powerful the software is and how we can work with it, especially to build design systems using Angular. Because I know for some people over here, they might be new to Angular or are just starting off, and at least getting a sneak peek of the different capabilities Angular has, at least they can have like a guess of what they have, what's in store for them. But I'd like to say thank you also for taking the time. And yeah, as you can see, I can see you also getting into the Christmas spirit. Yeah.
It started already. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. For those who joined us again, this session has been recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel. You just go and search for Angular Kenya and you'll see all the sessions over there. It will be ready by tomorrow morning. And yeah, if you like to follow Uday, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm available on Twitter at Ask Uday. So this is my Twitter handle. You can see it on screen.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So yeah. Also, all the slides that he's used today and all the other resources, he'll share it with me, and then of course I'll post it with all the other necessary information when the recorded session is ready. And please be on the lookout for it. We'll tweet, and also if you've learned anything, please also reach out to Uday, at least give him at least say thank you to what you've actually learned over here. Tweet about it. You can tag us at Angular Kenya, at Ask Uday. So please share your knowledge also with other people out there. But without much further ado, I'd like to say thank you, and thank you, Uday, once again. And we hope to see you next time in another session.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking your time and joining. And thanks, Wayne, for conducting this awesome meetup. Yeah, let's connect again in future with another session. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. And
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.